Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's card I've got the Tim Holtz Sizzix Cauldron, if it'll focus. And we're going to make a very detailed, very die cut heavy card. I'm going to use the new to me Honeybee Pumpkin Spice Market Cart add-on. I don't actually have the market cart yet, but I want to show you what you can do with the add-on instead. I'm going to use some pieces from the Mushroom House from Lawn Fawn, and I'm also going to use I'm going to use the windows and the chimney and that little stick thing. I don't know what it's called. That rod that holds up the little lantern. And then I'm going to use some pieces from the Acorn House as well. I'm going to use the door, that's the, I think, and the stairs. I knew there were a couple of pieces. And then also using the Spooky Fence border from Lawn Fawn. So lots of like mixing and matching different companies and different dyes. And then I also decided to add in the birch trees just as an extra bit in the background to sort of add to the backdrop. Oh, and I'm not finished obviously. And the grassy border from Lawn Fawn, just the straight edge grassy border. You could use the curved ones or some of the other ones that they've got. And then I have in my stash these, I think I bought them from the Works 10 years ago. They're just some stitch square squares, dies. And yeah, just whatever you've got. You could cut cardstock down. You don't need to have a die to cut things out. Not something like a square. So I'm going to start with, I've got some Mowed Lawn, Rustic Wilderness and Black Soot oxide inks. I actually grabbed my Black Soot Distress ink instead. It's a little more intense, so I just felt like that was better. And also I had it sitting on my desk with a little applicator, which you'll see later on. So I just thought I'll grab that instead. It just made it easier. So than having to get another brush out to try and find for the Black Soot oxide. I'm using some Bristol Smooth cardstock for all my blended pieces, and these are two of the grassy borders that I cut out. I used the Cauldron as a guide on the height of the square that we're going to put all the scenery onto, and I also used the same square die to cut out the bottom edge of the grassy border, and then cut the grassy border itself, so that you get that stitching all the way around the square. Again, you don't have to do this. You could just cut it out with a paper trimmer and you know, job done. What I also wanted was the top edge of the grass to look more like the moonlight was hitting it, so it's lighter at the top. Didn't totally work out that way, just because of trying to use the piece of cardstock to stop my fingerprints going into the ink, because oxide ink is very wet, like distress ink. In the end I didn't worry too much, but it just gives it a little bit of extra highlight along the top edge of the grass, so it looks like the moonlight has hit the top of the grass, if that made any sense. And then I'm going to take my distress ink in Black Soot. Like I say, it was just on my desk, so I used that, and just went around the bottom edges of the grassy borders, and it just adds that sort of moody nighttime sort of thing, or at least that's what happens in my head. So this is the main square. This is the largest of the set that I had, and we're going to make a 5 by 5 inch card, but this actually is smaller than the 5 inch, so I forgot to measure it, but I want to say it's maybe 4.5 by 4.5 ish. Yeah, something like that. It is, you'll see it's quite a bit, it's a bit smaller, might be 4 3/4, I'm not sure. And so for this I have Shaded Lilac, Dusty Concord and Villainous Potion for my 3 oxide inks for my sky. I thought I'd give this a whirl. I didn't know how these combos would kind of work together. And to start with, I used, and this mask that I've used for my moon, this little very colourful circle, I've had that for many years. There's some very old, and I mean long time ago, Halloween cards that I made where I actually first used this thing, and it's still going. I just keep it on the carrier sheet and it just keeps going. So I'm going to use it until it really does give up. So and I think the masking tape that I used, or paper, was I think it's a Sticks 2 brand. So obviously it's pretty good, so it's lasted this long. We're talking like over 5 years. I think that's kind of how long I've had it. So I started with the lilac colour, and then moved on to the Dusty Concord, which is more pink than purple, as I was adding this in, but I actually like how this turned out. And then I used a really small brush just along the top edge for my Villainous Potion, which is my favourite purple. I love purple. Purple's my favourite colour, and I love that colour. It's so dark and deep and intense, and I love it. So I added a little bit of that along the top edge, and then I will also bring in my black soot around the sort of 3 sides, again, just to add that extra moodiness for a nighttime scene. And I really like how this turned out. I like the colour combos. Blending is just, especially with oxides, it's so easy to do. If you're new to blending, I would start with oxide inks. They just work and blend really, really well. And also the paper that you use makes a difference, although I will use anything, you know that. But I'm using Bristol Smooth cardstock, and this is not the vellum, the other one, but it works really, really well, and it literally glides across the paper. It's fabulous. So then I took a tiny little ink blender brush thing. These are all makeup brushes, or cheap ones I bought offline. Sometimes cheap is not good. And I'm using some Pumice Stone oxide ink and just going around. Now this brush happened to have, it was the same brush I used for the Villainous Potion, so it has a little hint of purple in there, even though I brushed it off. So I thought, well, do you know what, it doesn't matter on this sort of occasion. And then what I want to do, also with the moon, I didn't go right to the outer edge of the moon so that it still had that halo effect. And then I spritzed all 3 pieces with some water from a distress sprayer. You could flick water on with a paintbrush and some water in a cup. It will work just as well. So I've set those off to one side for a second while I clean up. And I'm working on a Tonic Studios mat. It's like a non-stick mat. It's clearly well loved. I use it for a lot of my mixed media stuff as well, because like you can get just about anything off that thing. Underneath is actually my Tim Holtz glass mat. I just thought I'd try this because of the glare that I sometimes get from the glass mat. So for everything, all the other pieces, 10,000 of them, I'm going to use either black soot or brushed corduroy distress ink, or a combination of both, to ink the edges, because we've got this moodiness going on with the background. I wanted the whole lot to be like that, so that's what we're going to do. I'm just kind of setting out my scene. The fence I actually cut out of some black glitter cardstock. It's very old cardstock to me, and I've had it for a long time. I don't know how long it's been out there, but I've had it for a long time, and I think it's a Paper Mania glitter cardstock. It does shed a bit, but for this kind of project I think that's okay, because you want that sort of distressed kind of look anyway. It's a Halloween project, or it's a Halloween card, or whatever you're doing, so to me that doesn't matter. But sometimes you don't want your glitter to shed, so you know, there's lots of different companies out there that make wonderful non-shedding types of glitter cardstock, but this one I like. I think it worked really well, and there was enough sparkle in it to just give that little bit of hint of sort of sparkliness, if that's even a word. So I got some ink onto the trees. I used the brushed corduroy for that one, and I am now I have now stuck them onto the background where I think they'll look quite good. The thing I forgot to do, and you'll see it later on, is I forgot to add some spider webs that I cut out. I wanted them to kind of be like behind the trees, as if they're sort of coming off the trees, if that makes sense. And I totally forgot, and I stuck the trees down. So when you're working on a project that has a lot of detail, yeah, sometimes you have to remember where you are at what stage, but it's fine. And then for the the fence, I decided to put the fence on the back of the grass, one of the grass borders first, using some wet adhesive, because you're sticking glitter to something else, or you know, the grassy border to the glittery cardstock. You need a wet adhesive. I think a tape would just wouldn't work. I don't think, even the super sticky ones, I just don't think they'll hold long enough. So I got that on there, and I didn't stick the smaller grassy border on yet, because I just needed to first of all let those layers dry, but also I wasn't sure whether I was going to pop that up in front or behind the house. So this is where I start to ink all the 9,000 pieces that I've cut out. So the banner is from the cart add-on from Honeybee, and then the window and door are from the lawn fawn houses, the mushroom and the steps, the mushroom and acorn house, I believe. And then there is a solid piece for the windows, which you just die cut that out, so that's great. So I just added a piece of yellow cardstock to the back of that. And then for the door, I actually cut a piece of the same yellow cardstock and just stuck it behind the door, which you'll see in a second. That way they all look like there's this little sort of glow coming from the inside. And the yellow is kind of it's not a bright yellow, it's kind of a sort of I think it's crushed curry, Stampin' Up cardstock anyway, so it's kind of got that deeper, richer kind of color. So I thought that made more sense with a Halloween card. So all the yellow cardstock you see is the same yellow cardstock, all the orange is the same, all the reds, whatever I've used the same cardstock, because I had it there. I was like, right, let's just die cut it in the same as I'm cutting these pieces out. It makes sense just to do that, and then it all kind of works together. So for the banner, there's one main middle leaf. I don't know the names of the leaves, by the way. And then you cut two for the sort of next one along, and then another two for the two on the ends. So I just went with the green, a red, and an orange and a yellow. And then my pumpkins, I did cut that in two different shades of orange, or like an orangey red kind of color. And I got those inked up as well. And those pumpkins were also from the Market Cart add-on. I tried to use as many pieces from that, because that was the main die set that I wanted to sort of showcase for you guys and show you something else you could do other than using it on the Market Cart, which is what it's meant for. It's like an add-on to that. But I wanted to show you something else you could do with it, that you can still use all those pieces and make it work. So for the next, all the grey pieces that I cut out, like the sign that's from the Market Cart, I don't know what this thing is, this pole thing that's gonna, I'm gonna amend that so that we can actually make our own signpost, that's the word. The chimney and the spider webs, like I say, I didn't use the spider webs quite where I wanted them, but that's fine. They're all inked in Distress Black Soot, sorry. And then for the sign itself, I did the same yellow, and this actually debosses the words in it, so that's kind of my sentiment for the card. And the sign says Witch's Brew. There's two other ones in there that you can use. I think one's about like coffee bar or something, I can't remember. But there's a few layers, so you add the next layer, which is this black piece, and then you add the main like signage onto it. It's just the coolest thing. So now that I've got my cauldron, I also inked the edges of my cauldron in I think it might have been antique linen Distress Oxide ink, just to highlight the edge of it. And I kind of think this cauldron looks like it's got two arms, like it's if anybody knows me, you know what double teapotting means. But where it's kind of like she's got like her arms out, and she's got her arms on her hands on her hips. That makes sense. Anyway, that's where my brain went. So I decided I've now stuck the door and the steps on, plus the two little windows. I thought I'd start with the base part, the little house, the cauldron house. And then I got the little cat, which is from the Honeybee, the pumpkin cart add-on. And so are the spider webs, by the way. And so I'm going to use the bigger spider web and put that across the top of the cauldron. I thought that would work quite nicely. It doesn't obviously fit because they're not designed. They're two different companies, so they're not designed to go together, but I make it work. So I think that's the key thing as well. And then getting my little chimney on, so that's from the mushroom house, and just moving that up. So that's a lawn fawn die. But isn't this just the coolest thing, how you can mix and match all your different products? We spend all this money on these things. Make the most of them. You know, mix and match as much as you can. You'll be surprised if you think about it like this. And this is how Tim Holtz said it in one of his videos. And he said they're all parts and pieces. So once you then, if you think of your dies like that, then once you've got a whole bunch of them like this, you can then start to mix and match them and put, oh, actually that will work with this or the other. So yeah, so that's kind of where my brain went with that. So I finished putting the banner on the house as well. And this is where I'm trying to work out whether I want the grass in the front or the back, or if I want the grass at all, the second layer of grass, I should say. And I decided it still needed to go on the front. You'll see in a second. I'm putting this on what I thought would be behind the cauldron, but actually when I went back into it, I thought, no, it looks better behind that front layer of grass. So if I was clever enough and thought ahead, I could have actually just popped that front layer of grass up a little with a thin sort of foam, just so that it lifted it slightly and it would have been easier to tuck things behind. But this still worked. I didn't put the adhesive on all the blades of grass, so it wasn't stuck, so I could get that cauldron house behind the grass, and then just put a acrylic block on it to help it hold the glue, you know, hold in place so that it could glue. That made some sense. And then deciding where to put my little sign, so I popped it off to the left there, and again just making sure that I can get the grassy borders and things on there. So I've got the grassy border on there, and I decide later on to take that off because it just doesn't work. So it doesn't match the other grass, so I decided not to bother with that. And then just deciding where to put all my little pumpkins and all the decorations, so all the things that you've inked up and getting ready and, you know, prepped. Now just deciding where to put those on the card to make it look like this cool little cauldron house scene. I couldn't decide where to put this cauldron, the little one. So in the end, and I also cut that out of some sparkly cardstock, in the end I put that on the inside of the card. So you'll see that in a few. And this is where I realized that I didn't have my my spider webs, and I didn't know whether I was going to shove them in the corner there, but I thought that doesn't make sense for a scene. They were supposed to tuck slightly behind the tree, so it looked like they were coming off the trees, but anyway. And then this like smoke or smolder or whatever you want to call it coming out of the chimney is actually what comes with the cauldron die to what would be the whatever's been made in the cauldron is coming out of the cauldron. So I went back and tried to use some of these other grassy pieces, which were also from, I think, the mushroom house. I forgot to mention that. But I actually don't like this one on the left. It doesn't make sense, so I just took it off. And yes, it tore a bit, but I honestly decided not to worry too much in the end because it's Halloween. It's, you know, things are not going to be super perfect. So once I've done that, I've got a 5x5 inch white card base, and I'm just going to glue this to the front. Nothing fancy, just stick it on there. And I could have popped it up on some foam, but I thought this worked really nicely, and I think it's quite a cool scene. And then because I just hate wasting, so I decided to add the spider webs and the cauldron on the inside of the card. I know I could have kept them off to one side for another project, but I'm kind of weird like that. I never go back to those pieces, so I think, well, if I can use it on the inside and use it on that project that I'm thinking of and working on at that point, then that just makes sense for me. You know, do what works for you. If it's easier or better, or your brain just goes, yeah, let's just save it, let's do another project with that, then great, do that. But for me, I'm never going to go back to these pieces. I will create new pieces for a new project because my mind will be on that project, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so I stuck them to the ends of the card basically. So here you go, guys, a sort of very detailed, very die cut heavy card for Halloween, and I love how it turned out. I'm really chuffed. It did take a little while. There's a lot of die cutting, but sometimes it's just worth doing that for all that added extra detail that you can get on a card. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.